Sometimes the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And here's your host, Ben Adelberg.
Thank you for joining me here at the back of the range. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. This is episode 34. Well, for those of you that are following us on social media, you'll know that I'm currently in St. Andrews, Scotland right now. I recorded the intro to this week's episode before I left because, well, I didn't really trust myself to get it done this week. Tons of golf, tons of pubs. Yep, wasn't going to chance it at all. So I'm not able to do a PGA Championship recap or a Ryder Cup standings recap with a whole lot of, specifics, but here goes. What an amazing victory by at the PGA Championship. What a worthy champion. And even though and were right there on Sunday, it was still great to see pull out the victory for his major championship. Now, on to the U.S. Ryder Cup team. Do you really think that the move that made on the points list is going to make a difference? You know that and are most likely going to get the captain's picks, but do you think that might get in there as well? I don't know. We shall see. Only time will tell. Okay, moving on. I hope that you all are following us on Instagram. That seems to be the hot shit these days, and I'm too old for Snapchat, so I hope that works for everyone. Follow us on Instagram at the Back of the Range podcast this week and especially moving forward. I'm going to be taking lots of pictures and videos from St. Andrews and a bunch of the sights and sounds from all over the city. And we'll also do kind of a giveaway. Since I'm not around to do Freetail Tuesdays this week, I'll grab some souvenirs from St. Andrews. So just stay tuned. I'll figure it out. I'll get some free stuff out to you guys. So I do it all the time. Thank you so much for the support of the podcast. When you tell people about the podcast, make sure you send them over to thebackoftherange.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You'll find all the information in the notes of this episode. And if you're listening and you like the episodes and you want free stuff, please leave a review in Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you can do it and tell your friends. We'll keep bringing you amazing guests each and every week. So while I'm in St. Andrews, the best amateurs in the world are at Pebble Beach for the U.S. Amateur. Our guest this week, well, he knows a little bit about that tournament. In fact, he participated in arguably the most exciting final in history. Yes, this week we welcome Steve Scott to the Back of the Range. He took Tiger to 38 holes in the 1996 final at Pumpkin Ridge, but that wasn't the only highlight of Steve's career. He played collegiately at the University of Florida, played on 2 Walker Cup teams, which is insane, and he was the number 1 ranked amateur in the world in 1999. While his professional touring career may not have matched Tiger's success, he's been a successful teaching pro at numerous clubs all around the country. He does some TV work for Fox, and recently he started 2 new exciting golf ventures, which we're going to get into in this interview. One is the Outpost Club. The other is the Silver Club Golfing Society. Oh, and how did I get Steve to agree to do this interview? Well, that's the first thing we discussed. So, Steve, let's get started here at the Back of the Range. Thanks so much for joining me.
Good to be with you, Ben.
Well, I went to I have no limit and no shame as far as trying to obtain guests for this podcast. So I had to go deep into the depths, and I am going to tell the full story of how this episode came to be. So you and I are from the exact same hometown, Coral Springs, Florida. And fortunately, I have one of those mothers that kept every single photo of rec soccer and rec baseball and rec basketball. And you went to a different high school than I did, but we actually played on a rec basketball team probably at the age of, what was that? Like 9, 10, 11, something like that?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, about that.
And fortunately, I was able to obtain that photo and use it for blackmail and get you on for an episode. So I'm marginally ethical, and if it gets me a good episode, then so be it.
There you go.
So we always kind of start these episodes off just highlighting the beginnings and the start in the game of golf. Obviously everyone knows your history playing in the U.S. Amateur Final in '96 against Tiger Woods, but tell people how you actually got into the game of golf.
I got into the game of golf. My father got me into it he cut down a putter for me when I was 5. Started playing tournaments when I was 10, and just fell in love with the competitive aspect of the game. It's just so much fun to get out there and compete and for me, and you probably didn't like this back when in basketball days, but for me, I was like a ball hawk. If I got the ball, I didn't want to pass it, and I think that's probably what led me into golf, because of the individualness of the sport. And give me the ball, I want the ball, and
Sure.
I run with it.
Well, I wasn't really useful with the basketball at all, so I really didn't care. But so really, you found that just personality wise, that's what drove you into the game. And got you passionate about it. And then you went to Coral Springs High School. I went to a rival one down the road. What was your high school golf experience like?
High school golf was great. We had a super team. We won the state high school championship my sophomore and my senior year. I won it individually both of those years as well. So we had a really good team, and just one of those things that turned out great. We had a team that was really special, and for a public school, it turned out to be a really good team.
And you end up going to University of Florida. Your recruiting process was, I'd imagine, being a two-time state individual champion doesn't hurt your prospects, but were you getting a lot of attention outside the state of Florida, or were you leaning towards staying in state? What was your process getting into college?
I went to a few recruiting trips. I went to Florida State, Texas A&M. And I kind of wanted to stay somewhat close to home. Gainesville is about 4 hours from home for a drive, and it just worked out really well. We had a great team there, and great coach and Buddy Alexander, who won the U.S. Amateur back in the mid '80s, and we had a super team, and it turned out to be just a great decision to stay in state. And I had a few. I played some national junior events, but there really wasn't a ton of people knocking down my door. I didn't fly the ball in the air with my driver, as far as some people and things like that. But I had a lot of tenacity, and I think that's what kind of carried me through the sport.
Sure. Who was on that team that you had at UF? Because I know, obviously Coach Alexander, I've spoken to other people actually that have played at UF. Spoke to Duke Butler IV. He was on one of our early episodes. Can you just speak to the culture of golf at UF?
Yeah, they've just been, they've had great teams over the years, and they've had teams that have just really, from, guys who still compete on tour or competed on tour, from Chris DeMarco to Chris Couch to Brian Gay to all the way back to, the 70s, Gary Koch, Andy Bean, Andy North. They just perpetually had great teams at University of Florida. I played with Robert Floyd and Josh McCumber, both All-Americans. I played with another guy named Carlos Rodiles, who played on the European Tour, and I believe he won over there. And then who came after me was guys like Nick Gillum and Bubba Dickerson, who won the U.S. Amateur, and Matt Every and Camilo Villegas, and there's just always been great players that have come out of the University of Florida, and I wanted to be a part of that culture.
Yeah, and the Gainesville is not necessarily the I don't know how I can say this delicately, but it's not the most happening town. I don't know of a lot of phenomenal golf courses in the area of Gainesville. I know you're Division I, but it's not like it's not like an Oklahoma State where they have a huge facility, and it's kind of stuck in the middle of Florida. So,
right.
What is it that just for junior players that listen to this podcast, or parents that have junior players that are trying to make that tough decision of going to play college golf and where should they play, and just weighing all the options, what was it that you think caused all these phenomenal players to come out of that program, in the middle of a very large state?
Well, there's very few places in the country where you can play golf 12 months a year. Even though Illinois and Northwestern have, made some nice programs over the years and pumped out some really good players. When you can play golf all year round, I mean, that wins out. I mean, you can get some bad, if you're not on the coast of California or, or Texas, maybe, Oklahoma gets some nasty weather.
Sure.
But Florida, the weather is, it's conducive for playing golf 12 months out of the year. So, in that respect, why wouldn't you go there?
Yeah. And what was the did Coach Alexander really like to push a high level of competition between the players? What were some of your practice sessions like, or your qualifiers like? I mean, I would imagine it just had to be a pretty nasty fight to get into that top 5 each and every time that the qualifier came up.
It was always tough, and Coach always put the qualifiers at 7 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday morning, so we couldn't go out and enjoy the nightlife as much as we would want to in Gainesville. And it really made you dedicated to to put in the work and to be ready, and you couldn't goof off. You showed up on time for your workouts at the gym, and if you didn't show up on time and do your job, I mean, it was not going to be good for you.
So playing at Florida, the culture there really set you up to succeed at the professional level.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Florida, we always played against great teams and at great venues. And, I think that's part of it. If anybody's whoever's listening out there that wants to go to college and play college golf, I mean, I think that anything I can pass on in that realm is, go to a place where, you're going to play. You're not going to just be maybe a 5 or number 6 guy, maybe getting in the starting lineup. Get a place where you can play, and get a place where they play good golf courses in their events, because you just learn so much more by playing great. We played great golf courses. We played places like anywhere from Conway Farms to Pumpkin Ridge. Yep. To we went to Puerto Rico every year. Went to Vegas. We played great golf courses all over the country, and that really prepares you. And then playing against the other top schools in the country really prepared us for the next level.
Well, everyone knows about your appearance in the '96 USAM, and not to move past that, but you really have had a huge or tremendous amount of success as an amateur. I mean, I don't know how many people would remember the fact that you were the number 1 ranked amateur in 1999, 3 years after that match or that appearance in the US Amateur. You played on 2 Walker Cup teams. I definitely want to ask a couple of questions about the USAM in '96, but tell me a little bit about the qualifying and getting into that USAM in '96. Everyone remembers the final match, but you're just a freshman, or you had just completed your freshman season at UF, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was. I had it was a great run that summer in '96, and yeah, I just had a super year. I finished runner up in about every major amateur event I could, and that was really a tremendous year.
So you qualify for the USAM. You mentioned Pumpkin Ridge. So had you played that course in some of your collegiate events, or had you not gotten out there quite yet?
It was funny because it was almost like fate, because my freshman year was actually my very first collegiate event I ever played in.
Okay.
Was at Pumpkin Ridge. We actually, every year they have well, at least back then, I don't know if they do now, they had the preview, like they called it the preview championship. Sure. Or somewhere we played where we're going to play the NCAA at the end of the year. And that year was the NCAA was at the honors course, and they basically, their rules at the honors course in Chattanooga, Tennessee, they couldn't hold more than 1 major event a year there. And so they had to pick an alternate venue for the preview the year before, because they had held another big event, and basically, we played Pumpkin Ridge, and that was my first collegiate event ever there. So yeah, a lot of good memories at Pumpkin Ridge.
So you qualify for the USAM after playing there, or you qualify for the USAM, and Now that you see you're going to Pumpkin Ridge, you just got to be kind of licking your chops, or at least comfortable knowing where you're going.
Yeah, I definitely was. Yeah.
And you were, I mean, just like everyone else, I would imagine you're kind of under the radar because this big, I mean, for lack of better terms, just this big storm's coming to town called Tiger Woods. I mean, it's basically his last event as an amateur. Um, what was qualifying? What was the stroke play qualifying like? What was kind of the general vibe at that tournament? Well, before he ever got into match play, was it just a typical USAM? Was it anything different that you kind of felt?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he had nobody in the history of golf had won 3 U.S. amateurs in a row, and so there was a certain vibe about that. And what's amazing, I mean, Tiger always performed when he had to perform. And he had all the pressure on him that week, and he won the medalist. He shot 69, 67 in the stroke play.
Yep.
And he was medalist in that. He not only won the event, he was the medalist in stroke play. So, which is really hard to do out of 312 players. So, he just kept performing when he had to perform. And for me, and I shouldn't even have made match play that year, I shot 79 the first round of stroke play. And then I backed it up with a 66 on day 2. Was really lucky even to make match play that year.
You shoot the 79 in the first round. Not laughing at that because I do that every other weekend. But you shoot 79. You shoot 79 the first round. Is your brain just scrambled at the time? How do you get your head straight to go to shoot 66 the next day?
Yeah, it was just one of those things that I don't know. I just kind of caught lightning in a bottle and started making every putt, and I really had nothing to lose. So, and I went out there and I played really hard, and I don't know, things just really worked out. I just got in a zone that day, and the hole just looked the size of a bucket.
So this is a question that I've wanted to ask someone that has played in the U.S. Amateur or has gotten to the finals or the semis, but it's been that way that the U.S. Amateur champion and the U.S. Amateur runner-up both get an invite to play in the Masters, obviously if they remain as amateurs and they keep their eligibility. How much does that enter your mind when you're playing in that semifinal match? Are you thinking about, or do you remember thinking about, man, if I win this match, I play in the Masters, or are you still thinking about the trophy at the end?
Well, you're thinking of both, but what really made me think about it is in 1995, the year before at Newport Country Club, I made to the semifinals that year. So I had a pretty good 2-year run in the U.S. Amateur, but I made to the semifinals that year. And, I can remember being very much consumed with, hey, I could play in the Masters if I win this match. And that was difficult. I barely lost. I lost on the first playoff hole in the semifinals in 95. But in 96, my experience in 95 really helped me. Really, helped push me, past and kept me more focused, I guess. And
Sure.
I don't know. I guess I didn't think about it. I thought about it, but it wasn't like the biggest thing on my mind.
Right.
It was, I definitely felt like, hey, I belong here, and I was in this situation last year, and I learned from it, and that was it.
Obviously play the match against Tiger. Anyone who has followed golf over the last 20 years, 25 years knows that you took him 38 holes. You were 5 up after 18. Everyone's familiar with incident with him not moving his mark back, or actually the incident of you reminding him to move his mark back, which if that had not happened that way, obviously he would have lost that hole and lost the match. But, people can Google, they can YouTube, they can find I think the entire match is probably on YouTube. But the one question I was really curious about is, obviously it's a David versus Goliath kind of thing. It's the coronation of Tiger Woods. Do you remember what the crowd was like? Were they in support of the underdog? And then maybe, did that change as they realized, wow, this kid's actually 5 up on Tiger, and this is not how this is supposed to go. Nike's there, Phil Knight's in the crowd, and the media and NBC. I mean, everyone's just like, hey, this is Tiger's last day. He's going to win. Did you feel anything like that in the crowd? What was your feeling when you were playing that match?
The only thing I ever thought about was, I remember walking down the first hole of the, 7:15 in the morning, and the whole entire hole was aligned with people, and I just had so much confidence that week. And I noticed that his sports psychologist was not caddying for him, Jay Brunza.
Right.
Jay was one that he was trained in the Navy and, psychological warfare or whatever you call it. And basically he trained Tiger to be really mentally strong. And he also caddied for him in, I believe, all of his previous USGA championships. And I noticed that he wasn't caddying for him that day in the finals. And it was kind of surprising to me. And and I said, hey, I turned to my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, Christy, and I said, this guy doesn't have a sports psychologist. He doesn't have a chance. I'm going to crush him. and
Nice.
and I remember saying that walking down the first fairway, and I fully believed that I was going to win that day. And it took some superhuman effort by arguably the greatest player that ever lived to outlast me that day.
If someone takes Tiger 38 holes, that's an incredible achievement, and it's probably one of the greatest U.S. amateur finals, I think, in at least that I can remember. I can't think. That's the other thing about it. It's so unique is that there's champions of this event in the last 15, 20 years since that those names don't really resonate all that much. They really don't.
Yeah.
I looked at the entire list when I was doing research for this episode with you. I looked at 96. And I'm looking at all the names, and of course, you see Kuchar, and you see several other names that won, and obviously with the UF connection, Ben Dickerson. There's a lot of names, but then there's a lot of them, and I'm not going to call those people out, but there's a lot of names that just kind of faded into the background.
Yeah,
you've said many times in articles and interviews that there's not a day goes by where someone doesn't remember and someone doesn't mention it to you.
Yeah.
Have there been what? Can you give me one of the most unique experiences that you've had when someone comes up to you and says, "Man, I watched that match and I was there"? Can you think of one that just kind of stands out a little bit more above the rest?
Yeah, over the years, I saw. Remember Peter Jacobson? He was out there. He's a Portland native.
Sure.
I think still lives out there. Professional announcer now, and great player on the tour for a long, long time. And he was out there watching that day, and I crossed paths with him at some point, and we were talking about the match, and he was in his view of it, and he was how he walked along the whole match and saw the whole thing, and yeah, there's just people that come up to me. It's hard to really pinpoint.
No,
anything,
I know it's a tough one.
but
I know.
but it's it happens. It happens a lot. People say, "Yeah, I remember I was I was in Mexico City and I saw like people were everywhere and they saw this event and they heard about it." So it's pretty cool that it people remember it for so long and. I mean, look, it's one of those things that nobody had won 3 U.S. amateurs, so he was the guy to do it, and I don't think we're ever going to see people don't stay amateur long enough. They win one and then they turn pro, and to try to get the riches of the tour, and people don't stay amateur long enough anymore.
Well, and speaking of that, that happens to you in the summer '96. You got to play on 2 Walker Cup teams. That doesn't really happen much anymore at all either.
Nope.
There's amateurs that don't even bother staying amateur to play in the Walker Cup, or
correct,
or they wait till it's announced and they're like, all right, I'm turning pro now. So, but you play in 2 Walker Cup teams, and I'm fascinated by team play. I love Ryder Cup, President's Cup, all of them, and you play in 2 of them, and you're just with some of these guys and you played against some of these guys. In '97, you're here, you're local, and what was your first experience getting onto that team, getting the announcement? How special was that?
Yeah, the Walker Cup, playing on 2 Walker Cup teams and getting the call to represent your country. Yeah, that's probably the most special thing that I've ever been, been asked to do, really. And for the Walker Cup. Even like on the Ryder Cup, see, the Walker Cup is different than the Ryder Cup. The Ryder Cup, they pick the top 8 points leaders, and then however many after that. The Walker Cup is not that cut and dry. Every player on that team is selected, So you are not automatic, if you win this or that, you're not automatically on the team. And so, you have to be selected, and, part of it happens to go to, hey, if there's a separator of something, I think it's, maybe it's the individual's character or their personality or whatnot. Could be, I think it's very much a prerequisite of, being selected for the team. And so I think that meant the most to me of any of the things that I've done or won in golf. It's to be selected to represent your country. And, that's it's extra special.
Yeah. And you really had two different experiences. Obviously 97, you win by actually your 97 win and the 99 loss are pretty similar in numbers. You dominated them in 97 and they actually dominated the US in 99. But what are some of the unique memories of people that you played with on the team? I know that whether it's Jonathan Bird you teamed up with in 99, I know that they had a young Justin Rose. He's actually at the time the youngest player to ever play in the Walker Cup in 97. What are some of the unique memories that you had from playing in Walker Cup, whether it's an opening ceremony or practice rounds or competing?
One of the coolest things we did was we actually had a practice session up in the New York area about a month before, and we got to know everybody, and that was probably, it's kind of like a team get together, but it wasn't really, there's no pressure or anything. That was probably the most fun. And then, look, the whole week is just, we're playing golf. NBC had national coverage of the Walker Cup. And, we thumped them pretty good over here at Quaker Ridge up in New York. And then, when we went overseas to Nairn in Scotland, we had, I played alternate shot. My partner was Jonathan Bird, and we played against Paul Casey and Luke Donald.
Yep.
And a couple of people who you've heard of a lot over the years and are still hearing of. But, that was pretty special. Jonathan and I were maybe 1 under par through 14 holes, we had match ended on 15. We were probably 1 under par, and they had a putt on the 15th green to go 7 under for the day.
God.
And alternate shot, which is really difficult. And they just didn't miss a shot or miss a putt. And they thumped us. So, not a great memory, but one of those ones that just sticks in your mind. Like, hey, no wonder why Luke got to number 1 in the world. No wonder why Paul Casey still winning PGA Tour events, this year, like he won at the Valspar in Tampa.
Sure.
Stuff like that. It's those are the cool things to look back and say, hey, I played against these guys, and it was Justin Rose being on the other team in 97. I didn't play any matches against him personally, but he's gone on and done some pretty good things too. So
yeah,
it was pretty cool.
What do you think it would take to get the Walker Cup more exposure? I know to get it to the level of the Ryder Cup, that's a pretty big ask, but what do you think is missing from getting people and sports or golf fans to invest their interest and time into following, who's going to make that Walker Cup team as much as they'll follow it as far as a Ryder Cup or President's Cup?
Well, I think you don't get as much coverage over the course of the year in amateur golf, so the people don't know the personalities and of the individual players as much. I think that's part of it. The general public probably doesn't realize how great the players that they're seeing. How great they're going to be. And there's so many players that have played. All your great players basically have played the Walker Cup, from Tiger to Dustin Johnson to, Justin Thomas to, Luke Don, you name it. These guys they've all played it. And, but yeah, if you had more coverage of amateur golf on television and you saw the people week in, week out, I think people would, the personalities might resonate a little bit more with the general public.
Well, speaking of television, not many people some people may know, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that you're doing a lot of coverage for Fox, whether it's US Open or other USG events. You're doing TV and hole coverage for Fox. How did that come to pass?
Yeah, I've been doing it for about 3 years now. I've done some TV work over the years, some on-course commentating over the years. Back in the days, maybe when I'd always missed the cut on what's now the web.com
Now,
tour.
come
I
on
never
now,
really
come
made.
on,
You know,
come
I
on
did a
now.
few. I did some weekends with them, and I did a little work, and I don't know. I just always had an interest in it. I always enjoyed it, and for the last 3 years, I've done a few events each year with Fox Sports, and covered on their digital streaming platforms last year, like for the Senior Open or the Women's Open or the U.S. Junior was on FS1. This year, I got to cover the U.S. Open for the first time, which was very special. And I also covered the Curtis Cup as well. So yeah, it's something I really enjoy doing. Certainly. Certainly not something that you never know where it leads to, but
Sure.
I'm not looking to make that my only thing I do. But it's a fun diversion, I guess, if you will.
Sure. And you've played in US Open. You played in the the 96 Open at Oakland Hills. You just mentioned that you were there at Shinnecock for this year, for 2018.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've seen over the years with how the USGA sets up a course for the US Open? I know when I spoke with Joe Buck several episodes ago, we talked about the greens at Chambers Bay, and then the rules issue with DJ at Oakmont. But can you describe just what you've seen out of the U.S. Open since you played in it compared to what it is now?
Yeah, look, I think it's always the most penal test of any of the four major championships. It's always that way. The rough is the longest. As far as they always play on a very difficult golf course, although it looks like the playing corridors and the fairways they seem to be a little bit wider
Yeah.
as a recent history. Which kind of lends itself to guys who hit it really, really far. I mean, you still have to hit it straight, but when you hit it far, if you're a little bit off, you still might be able to hit the fairway with a wide enough fairway. Shinnecock, they had some, the eighth fairway at Shinnecock was 61 yards wide, but that being said, you had to be on the correct side of the fairway. There was a lot of strategy with it, but to be on the correct side and have the best angle. But you give players that wide of a fairway, and it's going to be a lot easier. And frankly, I don't understand why they're, you hear a lot of complaints about it, and I mean, the fairways were huge, and these guys were shooting really high scores. Hitting 12 or 13 out of 14 fairways. They were shooting 78 from the fairway. So it's I don't know. It's not like it's it's not that much different over the years. It's always been the most penal test, and you got to hit and play. If you don't hit and play, you're gonna have trouble.
Sure. Yeah. No, I found it really fascinating with the setup this year, and the discussion of how they lost the course on Saturday. The USGA lost it on Saturday, and then they kind of made it maybe a little too easy on Sunday. And I've had conversations with people, and I guess the question I would have is it absolutely positively mandatory for the USGA to set the limit or set the course to such a point where if it dries out just a little bit more, they're going to lose greens, or it could be viewed as unplayable with all the stress and all the negative publicity that they've achieved. I mean, would you know why they would why would they set it up that close to fail?
I don't know. I mean, it was one of those things. And it doesn't take much. You get
Right.
one wrong wind direction. If like the 15th hole where the guys were putting it off the green,
Yeah.
if the wind was a little bit less or maybe coming from a little bit different direction, not an issue. It's not an issue. But you just need some moisture on the greens, really. At the end of the day, that makes it a little bit easier, and they did that on the final round. But it was just a situation where they just needed a little bit more moisture on the greens. They just needed more moisture.
Yeah. I just wanted to transition into just something else. one of the interesting things about your professional career, you played the web.com, you played the Canadian tour, and then you obviously decided, like, look, I'm kind of treading water here. I need to make that decision to transition to something different in life. Was there a particular moment that you just said, this just isn't for me anymore, other than looking at miscuts or financial or dollar amounts or anything like that? Was the aspect of the game and loving the game kind of fade for you?
I think when you have to do something every day as opposed to want to do something every day. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a job, and I think you see this with a lot of players. I don't care what profession it is. I mean, if you have to go, if it's something that you like to do, but you don't have to do it every day, when it turns into something that you really have to go do and have to go practice, and because it is your job, I think it definitely takes on a different perspective, and I have a lot more fun playing it now.
Sure.
Than I used to. I mean, I still, I've always loved the game, but yeah, when you have to do something every day, it can become tedious and monotonous, and you got to go hit putts for 2 hours, you got to go chip, and you got to hit bunker shots, and there's so many parts of the game where it's like, okay, well, you got to do it because you feel like you're losing ground if you don't, and and also I didn't have all the physical attributes, like to carry the ball 300 yards like some of these guys do, and I could fly at 265 or 70, and that's kind of not good enough. It's definitely not good enough now, but I was kind of seeing the writing on the wall, and I just wasn't there.
When you transitioned to being a club pro and being a teaching professional, were you surprised at how quickly you fell into that? Was there a passion for teaching the game that was kind of starting to appear when you were transitioning out of playing professionally?
Yeah, it took me a couple of years really to kind of, play club pro golf essentially, and be chatty with the members that I would play with. And I mean, it didn't just happen overnight, but yeah, the best part about it is, and the part that I still love teaching. Teaching is legendary teacher Bob Toski, who lives down in South Florida. He's almost 92 years old. He had a big heart attack actually recently, but he survived, and he was a huge influence in my in what I'm doing now, and becoming a club professional and helping others in the lesson tee, and I really enjoy that part of it. So that was a big part of it. And I just being able to help people and share stories, and my understanding of the game, and helping people play better. I think that was the biggest part that I love.
Yeah, speaking of Toski, I recently sat down with him for an episode, and I was fortunate enough to spend about 4 hours in his house, him telling stories.
Wow.
Only half was recorded, probably good for both of our sake, but Toski is a handful, even at 91 years old. Can you share a Toski story? Because I can't imagine being an apprentice, so to speak, under Bob Toski. You got to be on your toes, because I only had 4 hours talking to him about golf stories. I can't imagine what that was like.
My favorite time actually didn't come on the lesson tee. I caddied for him in an event one time.
Oh gosh.
And that was really, really special, but it really got me into his world of how he thought, how precise that he thought.
Yeah.
And so we're going down the very first hole, and it might have been 140 yards to the front of the green and 155 to the hole. And I said, okay, you got 140 to the front, plus 15, you got 155. And he says, plus 15 what? I said, well, plus 15 yards. He's like, yards? I deal in feet. You tell me in feet how many feet it is. I said, oh, okay, all right. It's 45 feet. Okay, so that was the first thing.
Uh-huh.
And then they were going down the second hole, And I mean, mind you, he's 78 at the time that I'm caddying for him.
What event was this? Not to cut you off, but what if
it was in a nondescript. There was like some senior mini tour around South Florida that he got from the event, and I just happened to be around. It was actually a course I lived at in Wellington, Florida. And anyway, so the second hole was like a 520 or 30 yard par 5, and it was downwind, and he hit the good drive down there, and it runs out there pretty good, but he still got like 265 to the hole.
Oh gosh.
And there was a fairway bunker out there, and I'm giving him I'm saying, okay, you got 265. Let's find a good number we can lay up to, and because there's a fairway bunker you had to kind of play around, and he kind of looked at me, didn't say a word, and he picked out his 3-wood, and he ran the ball up on the front of the green, and he's 78 years old. He must have hit it at least 250. And he put the club back in his bag, and that was the last time I wanted to give him advice of anything, because it was unbelievable how much talent that he has, and had and still has.
Yeah.
At 78 years old, he hit it that far. I'd never think that he could ever do that, and he did.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was pretty much in awe too when I was with him. I think I read his book twice before ever going over to his house, because I was like, I know I'm gonna have to be on my toes for this, because Bob Tosky just has a very unique conversational style where he is asking you questions during a conversation, and if you don't have the right answer, you feel like such a dumbass.
Yeah. You got to be on your toes.
Yeah, and I definitely felt like that. So, well, before I let you go, I do want to kind of hit on what you're doing now. I know you've had several head club pro positions at country clubs up in New Jersey and throughout the country. But right now you're doing something really unique, and I really wanted to ask about it and find out a little bit more. So tell me a little bit about the Outpost Club.
I was fortunate enough to come on board as the head professional of the Outpost Club on January 1 of this year. And the Outpost Club is a really cool national golf society. We have a membership and yearly dues like any club would have, but we don't own real estate. We have a lot of clubs that we partner with, a few as our home clubs and other as partner clubs, and we have about 800 members around the country, and we run north of 70 events throughout the year, domestically and internationally. So we will have events at really we'll call them just architecturally significant golf courses all over. It's a really special place where the membership they appreciate the history and the traditions of the game. They like to walk and take caddies. They play quickly, and they just really appreciate the game on a great level. And I always say it like this: it's like every club has like a handful of great members that really support the club, and clubs, standalone clubs all over the country. The Outpost Club is like a conglomeration of those small pockets of great members of all these clubs, and they've joined the Outpost Club. And we vet the process. We make sure that everybody is a good, upstanding citizen, and appreciates the game, and they're very well respected at their home clubs before we allow them to become members of the Outpost Club. And because we want our members to stick around, and we know that we're guests everywhere we go, and so we have to make sure that we are we have people within our membership that are going to represent us the way we want to be represented.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this concept is, not just the fact that you're getting access to these great architecturally significant courses, and you're kind of getting the really prominent members. I'm assuming really good players and really good just all-around guys you want to hang out with. Now, is it open to men and women, or what are the age ranges?
Yeah, we have women members. I mean, the age range is from 25 to 75. Anybody who really just appreciates the game and just loves the game, likes to travel and play great courses. We can do that. There's a lot of groups that have the, we'll call it the pay for play aspect of what we do. But what really separates us is the camaraderie of our membership and the number of events on our schedule. There's no other group that really has the event schedule that we do. We run events all over the country, around the world. We run events from, South Africa to Japan to New Zealand to St. Andrews in Scotland we just had an event in Canada last week. We have a ton of events in the U.S. So we're all over the place. We run a lot of great, fun events that people just can't wait to come back and play.
And are you traveling to almost all these events? Is it a tournament, so to speak, that you're running, or is it just a weekend that they're there, or how does that that work?
We do have a competition within each event, and not everybody is there for the competition aspect of
Sure.
it, but a lot of them are, and a lot of them are there just for the camaraderie and to be able to play a great golf course. And for me, I mean, because we have so many events throughout the year, we have 3 founders that travel to events, and there's also 2 other PGA professionals on our team. Director of Golf Mario Belomo, our tournament director Jay Freitag. We have our general manager Melissa Belomo. They live out in Scottsdale, Arizona, and so we're kind of split up regionally, and we kind of take care of a lot of events in our regions, and it's just we just have a great time doing what we do, and on our side of the team, and the members really love and appreciate the access that they can get and have, and the camaraderie that they share at each event.
That's great. So it's almost like just a traveling game all over the country, all over the world. And if you can make it, Come on in.
Exactly.
That's great. So Steve, you mentioned the Outpost Club, and I love the idea and the concept behind it, where you're getting members of their own home club. They can have this as kind of a supplement where they can travel around the country, see different places. But you said that it's somewhat competitive, but mainly a little bit more of a social atmosphere. Is that right?
That's correct. I mean, it's I would say, we run a lot of 16 to 32 player events, and our specialty really is that. And so we have, of those group, I would say, a third to a half of the players are there for the competition. They want to win, and they want, the trophy or what have you. The other 2/3 know that they might not be able to win or have like the game to win. But then they're there, to enjoy the great golf course and the camaraderie that the Outpost Club brings.
Sure. And now you mentioned something earlier before we started recording, that you have another arm of the Outpost Club, so to speak, that is actually tailored for the guys that, they want to be social, but these are the serious sticks that are grinders, that they want to really compete in everything they do. So do you have something for people that want that kind of an experience at one of these courses?
Yeah, no, essentially this is going to be a completely separate thing. This Silver Club Golfing Society is really what it is. It's it's going to be an invitation only society that really, we want to have more geared towards competition. The players that are going to play and join our society are going to be under an 8 index. We want people who are very good players. What we're going to do is we're going to have a flighted. We plan on having 4 separate flights based on your handicap index range. So people can compete against each other that are kind of in the same, within a couple strokes index wise, and they'll play scratch within those flights. But the big thing is there's other groups and things that run events like these and whatnot. Really, we want to make it so it's more of a, not really like a transaction like maybe some of the other ones, but more of a camaraderie driven society. The Silver Club Golfing Society is really,
geared towards that. We're going to play great golf courses. And then, you're going to build your network of golfers within that, and they're all going to be very, very good players as well. So you're gonna really understand how to get your competitive game going and really geared towards competition on great golf courses.
Well, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I would love to ask you, like the RBC and the other stuff like that, but maybe we'll save that for another time. Let me get you out of here with a couple of quick questions, just like a couple of quick bucket questions at the back of the range. So we ask this one all the time and get really different answers. Jack Nicklaus won the Masters in 1986 at the age of 46. Compare that to a potential fifth green jacket of Tiger Woods. Which victory would be the most substantial?
I think they're both pretty substantial. I think, for Tiger and where his game is at, it would be, and all the ups and downs that he's gone through, would probably be more substantial. So I'd probably have to say him, just because of the, personal ups and downs that he's been through. And I think it'd probably be, as far as the story goes, it's probably, probably a better quote unquote story.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting about half and half right now in these answers, but the other one, if you had to give a major to anyone in history, alive or dead, 0 majors, 18 majors, who would you give a major championship to?
Who would you give a major championship to? I don't know. I feel it, being that the Open Championship is coming up here in another week or so, I think you'd have to give one to Jean Van de Velde.
Wow.
Feel sorry for him. You gotta feel a little sorry. He had, man, he kind of deserved how great he played, and he threw it all away in one fell swoop there on the 72nd hole, essentially. But I'd have to say for that reason, I'd give one to John.
Nice. Yeah, I've played Carnoustie, and I was on that 18th hole. Look at all that.
I'll take one too. If I can give one to myself, I'll take one too. If a U.S. Amateur counts.
We, I would. That would be really cool. Normally we don't allow people to give one to themselves, but we can make a special Coral Springs, Florida exemption here. And well, Steve, man, really appreciate the time. Kind of wild. All these years later, our paths cross on a golf podcast of all places, but really appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck with everything in the future. And hopefully we'll be able to catch up again soon, and perhaps play some golf. Little Coral Springs High School against Taravella High School.
That'd be a lot of fun, Ben. I appreciate you having me on, and talking about all the good times in golf.
And there you have it. Another great episode here at the Back of the Range. Thank you so much to Steve Scott for joining us this week. Really was fun to catch up with him. Hope everyone is enjoying the U.S. Amateur. Go watch it on Fox. Go check out our friend Joe Buck doing all the coverage. I will be back in the States next week for another episode here at the Back of the Range.